All right, folks, welcome. While no one was looking, blockchain infrastructure makes several large strides. We're going to be talking about that today. There's some new protocols, new authentication approaches, and new combinations of messaging and payment. So while folks may be waiting on Web3 still, Web3 is waiting on no one. This is episode 36 of the Web3x3 podcast. I am joined as always by my lovely co-host, Michelle Peterson Clark.
Hi, everyone. Have a sore finger today.
And Mike Neubauer.
Hope the finger's okay. As long as it's not the one that you flip me off with.
As Americans, we can give you the finger if you need, Michelle.
Thank you.
I'm
Thank you.
Marc
Do you
Cantor.
know how hard it is to be doing stuff without a thumb? Let me tell you.
I've spoken to
Very,
several
very
primates.
difficult.
Story number one is about protocols. This is coming out of Decrypt. Chainlink has launched a cross-chain protocol that bridges the blockchain with traditional capital markets. So we won't get too techie on you, but basically this is supporting Avalanche, Ethereum, Optimism, and Polygon. And in a nutshell, this will allow regular banks to access asset tokens. We're starting to see the marriage of traditional finance and DeFi, which has been going on for a while. So we'll start off with you, Michelle. What are your thoughts around the merging of Fi and DeFi? And what do you think of these new protocols?
So I think it's an interesting take on it because, and Mike can talk to us a bit more about all the techie stuff that goes with it, but they talk about it not just being for Web3. So Mike, maybe it would be really useful for you to explain to our listeners, viewers, about how it can actually be used properly, even though it's a, cross-chain, it's a Web3 thing. How is it going to benefit, non-Web3 businesses?
Well, the technology was developed for Web3, right? So one of the biggest quirks about all this is how do I make inter-chain transactions? And again, just to simplify it to the best of my ability anyway, any transaction on a blockchain is nothing more than a ledger entry, right? It's just a documented transaction that's stored in some sort of a storage file system, which we call the blockchain. So what Chainlink does, and what really excited me, I guess, about this particular article was that I guess it was 8 months ago now. There's a very prominent builder that works directly with Ethereum. And, they were talking about this way back when, about the ability to cross transact across these various chains without the need to bridge into the native token. So let me get less technical. What is a native token? A native token is the token that is used to conduct a transaction on a particular blockchain. So, for example, Ether is the token for Ethereum. Matic is the token for Polygon. So what Chainlink does, and again, I don't understand the ins and outs from the tech side, or at least in the ability to describe it. But in short, what it does is it makes that transaction across those chains go quick and flawlessly without the need to migrate one token into the other in order to conduct the transaction and then migrate it back. So Chainlink is basically the intermediary that's able to exchange that token in real time and conduct the transaction in real time.
Mike, I'll give you an example that I think everyone will relate to. This is the environment of Apple with their Macintosh, the iOS, trying to integrate with the environment of Microsoft or Windows. That's people famously understand that concept. This is exactly the situation that's occurring in blockchain. There's all these technologists building their particular chain. They have their particular token for that chain. It all works a certain way. Having them talk to each other has always been a problem. The concept of an API is an old technology thing forever. It's the same thing in Web3.
Yeah, so, and I just want to make it clear that these protocols do not necessarily need to involve financial transactions. It's just a transaction of that stored data on one chain versus the other. So again, why is this useful? So imagine I have company A, Marc, you have company B, and Michelle, you have company C. And we basically have different levels of supply chain that we need to communicate on. So I work on Ethereum, Marc, you work on Avalanche, and Michelle, you work on Polygon. if we need to coordinate all of that data and make sure that you have the information that you need from either one of us, we can basically utilize this bridge to extract that same data, even though we're on different blockchains.
You know when I think this becomes relevant, Mike? Not right now. No one cares. No offense. It's later when you've built something really cool on your version of blockchain and I've built it on mine. And now we have a partnership or a merger or some form of a business transaction where there's a third piece of value created. Then this is foundational groundwork being laid.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be something quote unquote cool, right? It just could be a standard operational process of our respective businesses, right? So if you're a farmer, I'm the manufacturer and Michelle is the retailer, we can access the same information from the raw materials at each stage of the supply chain, even if we internally utilize different blockchains to store our own company data.
I won't be offended by making me the farmer, Mike. Michelle, you were going to say something?
No, I was going to say that, I mean, we've talked about it before, and certainly in the experiences we've probably all had in blockchains, like if you minted your NFT collection, say on Ethereum, in the early days, it wasn't so expensive, and then it became really expensive. But what you couldn't do was then say move that collection to Polygon, and my understanding of cross-chain, that is very hard to say, bridges, is the ability to be able to move things from one chain to another. And I think that can only be a good thing going forward in terms of ease of use, and the ability to be able to move your assets around, or to to buy on one chain, sell on another, and vice versa.
Well, there's still different technology pieces at the root level that don't necessarily make that possible. And I'll give you a perfect example. Like, you want to stick with the Apple. I mean, there's specific apps that only function on Apple, right? Like,
yeah, sure.
Android doesn't have access to those. It's just like trying to play a PlayStation game on an Xbox console. There's a foundational piece that still needs to remain intact. And what the cross-chain application will provide is the ability for certain bits of that information to cross over, so long as the contract that those tokens are extracted from are still consistent across both chains, right?
Mike, are you saying it's similar to Intellivision trying to cross-chain against ColecoVision?
I don't know what ColecoVision is.
Go on, keep going.
So so I'll give you a real practical example. If you decided that you wanted to take your NET and move it to Polygon, you wouldn't be able to do it.
Right.
Reason being is because the contract where it's housed, right, the native contract on which defines that token is launched on Ethereum. So that contract would need to migrate over first. But even at that, there might need to be a reissuance of token. Now, Matic and Polygon are layer 2s off of Ethereum, so the wallet addresses remain the same. But in instances like Avalanche and Solana, for example, you're required to have different digital wallets. So there's a lot of foundational and fundamental pieces that need to kind of get fixed first.
Did we lose you?
I'm here. I bounced out for a second.
That's all right.
So yeah, the foundational pieces, like, there's still a lot of work to be done, but Chainlink is definitely on the right track.
Right. So that's fine. I'm going to actually, I should try to find something to share with you guys. We're gonna take a stab here and see if I can get this thing to show you what ColecoVision is. And this is going back a ways. This was the original handheld video games from before. If I can get this down, 1978. I'm dating myself here, but that's ColecoVision was basically before there was any of the other stuff. All right. Moving on to the next story.
I was 11, and I was 11 then, and I'm pretty sure in Australia they didn't have those.
Yeah, it was an American thing. Coleco was they were like a competitor of Atari. Anyway, we're moving off of God, what are we doing here? We're moving off of protocols and
Internet identity.
Yep, I was actually doing authentication. So internet identity is a new type of authentication for Web3. There's an article here out of Android Police. Never heard of these guys. What is internet identity and how does it work? And it discusses how instead of using password protection, which we're familiar with, internet identity uses a chip on your device to automatically generate a disposable passkey. It does this with cryptography, but this is all free and open source. The problem is most apps don't quite have the receiving thing so they can identify you. So long story short, they're trying to come up with new and easier ways to authenticate the users in Web3, which, who doesn't want that? I think, again, this is infrastructure type thing. Go ahead, Mike.
I don't want that. I was just answering your question.
Tell us why you think that's a bad idea, Mike.
Well, I mean, all of this data, again, gets stored somewhere, right? It's still a Web 2 format for a Web 3 technology. And that data gets stored, which means it can get sold. Now, if there's biometrics involved, that puts a lot of other elements that are never going to be on blockchain at real risk, such as your identity.
Yeah.
A lot of people in the Web3 space run away when there's this whole KYC protocol, know your customer protocol, mostly because, it makes you turn on your webcam and hold up your IDs and then turn your face this way and that way. And they go through all these processes to make sure it's you, but all of that is recorded somewhere.
Yeah. They snap on the rubber glove. I understand. So I'll tell you this, though. It is, just to clarify something you said in passing, biometric is facial recognition. It does use that. So this is a facial ID recognizing thing, kind of like when people got freaked out when they started doing this with iPhones back when. So, and this is in direct violation of all that Web3 stands for in terms of anonymity. Meanwhile, we're moving forward with it. Again, we're seeing encroachment of Web 2 practices into Web 3 to quote unquote make it easier. Rochelle, what do you think?
Sorry, I'm trying to post the articles into the LinkedIn feed and it's playing up on me.
Are Mike's concerns valid around the whole storing of data?
I agree. I agree with him. I think that it is. It's a bit of the cloak. It's like smoke and mirrors, really, isn't it? So they're trying to convince you or to get you to believe that it's as safe as it would be if it was on chain only. And if, as Mike says, it's a Web 2 app trying to help you access Web 3, that's kind of not what we want. And that's, it's been like that. We the three of us have certainly been pretty consistent in our opinion of that, haven't we, since we started the podcast?
So I can imagine then, Mike, what your opinion will be on the next story on messaging coming out of Coinbase. There's now an all-in.
Before we jump there,
yeah,
I mean, there are alternatives to that, right? I mean, like everybody, I mean, most people on new phones now have biometrics in the form of fingerprints, right? You're only eligible to unlock that. Like there's digital wallet, DeFi wallets that are applicable to unlock using fingerprints now. I mean, that's fine. I don't mind that. I mean, again, like all that data, first of all, that's a hell of a lot of data to encrypt on a fingerprint. But again, that's specifically to the device that opens it up. It basically acts as the ledger. The minute that's stored somewhere else, that's where it becomes problematic.
So you're worried about what happens later?
100%.
Got it.
But again, like, we mentioned this app that makes people waffles pretty often here, right? Like, this is a solution to that. I'm not going to deny that this is definitely something that eases that onboarding process. But we also know that because of the technology and the way that it's integrated, your digital wallet address, which could easily have a DNS domain name to it, marcangelos.eth, michellepetersonclark.eth, mikeneubauer.eth, whatever it is, like that could be your identity that travels along all these different platforms too. And that's the whole point of it.
Yeah.
So that's in keeping actually with if I was going to jump to the next story because it connects, Mike. I'm not trying to rush us, but with Coinbase is rolling out a version of their wallet. Basically, you can have a Coinbase wallet that combines messaging and payments. Part of this is, and I'll explain that in a second, you own your own chats, right? So you can now take your messaging data and chats with you. They're tied to your wallet address. Is that good or bad? It depends on what they're doing, where that data is being stored. You raise a good point there.
Yeah.
Well, I think this is that. Well, first of all, let me be clear. I've seen at least 3 or 4 solutions to that same service in the past month. I've been working very closely with a company called Tribes, Tribes, and they've implemented a very simple API key that anybody could drop into a website where you connect your wallet, and now you have the ability to chat as that particular wallet address. And I met these guys when I was talking about those NFTs who can own NFTs, right? So imagine a world where an NFT could actually create a chat. So you create this AI bot, and that AI bot is linked to an NFT. That NFT now has the ability to chat using those features. But it goes well beyond just the chat, right? You have complete access to all the elements within a particular wallet. You can transact through those protocols as well. I believe Tribes uses OpenSea's Seaport protocol to conduct those transactions. So basically what it does is it reads everything on chain, and the minute a transaction is ready to fire away, it will trigger whatever wallet is connected, whether it's, MetaMask or Coinbase or whatever it is, to execute and sign that final transaction. And you really can conduct everything directly from the chat itself. You don't have to set up anything on OpenSea. You don't have to go through any of that stuff.
My thought goes to like major B2B marketing. I'm talking like Ronald McDonald being the person you're chatting with. The NFT is Ronald McDonald or Mickey Mouse or the Michelin Man, and you can actually have a conversation with the mascot of the company. Like I know that sounds silly, but that's exactly what a company would want to do to create, if you're going to create a brand.
Now, right? They can create a Ronald McDonald Facebook account.
But you can't have not yet, an AI chat with it. I mean, actually, you probably could, but right now it's not
absolutely you could. But
I know
to your point, I mean, bridging the technology, right? So, creating that one login where you can take that conversation anywhere. Like, you don't have to log into McDonald's to chat with Ronald McDonald. You don't have to sign into Facebook. You can have this app, and on that app, you could be talking to the Wendy's chick, Ronald McDonald, Grimace, whoever, the KFC guy, all of them at the same time.
Are you familiar with the whole Grimace shake meme? Have you guys seen this?
This is another marketing play that they threw out.
So apparently it's all over like TikTok and Instagram Reels. If you get a second, this has got nothing to do with Web3, but there's a meme going around where they have a shake, a purple shake to honor Grimace's birthday. It's a marketing ploy to sell shakes. Anyway, the fans have taken this, and the meme is you taste the shake and you say this tastes great, and then the next scene they're dead. The person drinking the shake. It's a horrible scene. There's been millions of these things posted, and it's selling a ton of McDonald's stuff. So they've interviewed the McDonald's marketing team like, "Are you guys aware of this? What do you think of this?" And they're like, "Yeah, we have no comment." So they're selling a bunch of shakes. They're not going to stop it, but they also don't want to condone murder.
Yeah, well, I guess if you find one of the machines that's operational, that's a first start, right? Like those machines are always down.
Before we leave this story, I want to touch the other piece of this Coinbase wallet story is actually that there's an all-in-one messaging and payment feature. So you can message, and they're your messages, take them with you, but you can pay. Obviously, it's a wallet. This ties directly to what Elon Musk has talked about. I know this is your second favorite person after Donald Trump, Michelle, and also what WeChat is doing in China. The concept of being able to pay for things, message for things in a Web3 environment, it keeps coming up from different projects and different versions. I really feel like that's what's going to be down the pipeline. What do you guys think?
Michelle?
Yeah, I think you're probably right about that. Finding multiple uses for this stuff is really what people are grappling with at the moment, aren't they? They're really trying to, I mean, and I think that part of that is probably because Web3 is pretty much the term, the name. Web3 is pretty much in the doldrums at the moment. So I think that, people who are committed to the industry are going, okay, we've got to come up with some other things or some other ways in which we can, make it relevant to people again. And then perhaps draw a better crowd than they had with the first round with all the crypto bros that we've talked about a number of times.
You know who's come up with something interesting and relevant to way to use this thing is Jay-Z.
We'll talk about that in a minute.
There's a story where he's teaming up with Puma to drop sneakers, and there's they call it a blockchain chip, interestingly. It's a microchip in the tongue of the sneaker. So you scan it with your smartphone, and then there's going to be digital content that it unlocks behind the scenes, like stuff that you get. And it ties to, he owns a record label. So it's a novel use. It's a little bit more interesting, I think, than just a Starbucks coffee card.
It's also nothing new. Gary did this forever ago. A company called Sneakerheads actually did it first. Basically all it is it's an NFC chip that's planted within the clothing. And when somebody scans it with a phone, it's linked to a mint page where they can mint a token. So the chip itself has nothing to do with anything other than bridging the user with the device to an end component, which in this particular case is an NFT mint site. But you could do that for sending them an email. You can do that for joining a CRM. You could do that for going to a landing page. I mean, it has absolutely nothing to do with Web3 at all. It's all in the way that they're messaging it. And again, like these other companies, they did do it in apparel, and it worked. I mean, look, it's different. Now, I mean, I own a few of those pieces from Sneakerheads just because I am a member there, and I wanted to understand what they were doing. But I quickly cut out the microchip. Who wants to be walking around with that all day, every day? I mean, the other crazy part is try going through security with that sweater on.
Oh yeah. Good point.
So, like there's a lot of pieces to this puzzle that are cool on the surface that these guys are throwing their names behind. It's another collaborative venture, which I think is important because nobody really wants to jump into the deep end alone. It's a way to sell merch. And most importantly, at this stage, it's a way to gather that customer data.
I have a random Go ahead, Michelle. I'm sorry.
And the other thing too is it's opening up his fan base to this. Now, yes, I agree with all of what you said, Mike, but at the end of the day, what people are doing, because it's gamifying it, isn't it? And we've talked about how, Web3 and gaming is probably gaming is going to be the avenue in which we bring in those billion users, billions of users. And this is a way of Drake going, Jay-Z. Sorry, got my rappers mixed up.
You're not up on your American rappers? Come on.
All rappers look alike.
Do you know, I heard a quick aside, I heard that my 15-year-old told me that The Weeknd, which we went to the concert a couple of weeks ago, is bigger than Drake now.
Really? Do you think the American rappers confuse the Web3 hosts in their world?
Anyway, so it's a way in which Jay-Z can bring his fan base to it. So what they do is they buy the sneakers and they go, oh yeah, there's this something else. Now everyone these days is pretty used, particularly after COVID. I don't know what it was like for you guys, but scanning a QR code on your phone was
Super
pretty common. We couldn't do that before we could go into any venues, shopping centers or restaurants or like whatever. So everyone's used to that now. So in terms of a marketing play, everyone knows how to do that. They know that they open their phone camera and they scan this. Now, what's happening in this case, as Mike said, is it's sending people to a page where they press another button and, they mint this extra thing that they get. And so from that point of view, it's sort of getting people into Web3 when they actually don't really know that that's what they're getting into. And at the end of the day, onboarding more people and making it frictionless, because we've talked about that a lot of times before, making it frictionless and having people be able to get into it without it needing a wallet necessarily or, 12 random words that you have to remember, all of that stuff. By being able to get people into it like this, then that's obviously going to be longer term a better thing in terms of familiarity. That's another word that's very hard to say. And being frictionless.
I have a comment to that, Michelle, because that's a great point. I want to drill on that a bit. This sounds like a random story and it's cute, but it relates directly. So bear with me a second. My 16-year-old son about a year ago printed out and slapped on the wall of our basement. He taped up a QR code. Nothing, just a QR code. And everybody that walks by scans this QR code because they're curious. And it ends up Rickroll. It's Rick Astley doing the, if you're familiar with Rick. So anyway, my point is this gamification of like unwrapping a gift on Christmas morning. It's up there with like scratch off lottery tickets or loot boxes.
Yeah.
Like this generation of kids, especially, are all about, I wonder what the tongue chip gets me, or what Gary Vaynerchuk's. Yeah. So I think that this is genius because Jay-Z's pushing them to a record label of artists that he owns. It's a stable of artists who are going to give you scenes, music drops, mixtapes, whatever, but it's all his stuff.
Again, it's the data though, right? I mean, that portal, once you scan that code, you get access to all the data. I was working with a label company from 2017 through January of 2020. And my biggest play was the technology implication on the label, and they thought I was nuts. And, you know,
Yeah.
literally 2 months later, everybody's scanning it at whatever restaurant they go to because that's all they could do to figure out what they wanted to eat. But the key element is that once you interact with that code, in this case, a QR code, in Jay-Z's case, an NFC code, you get access to all of it. You know exactly who scanned it, where they scanned it, you know, what their intention was, how long they stayed on that page, what they did on that website afterwards. Like there's analytics in place that can track that user throughout that whole experience. And I think that, you know, again, from the scratch ticket perspective, I mean, it's no different of those sneakers coming with a scratch off and say, you know, like one out of every 4 wins $5 off on the next purchase, which drives that consumer right back to the door.
I'm actually, Mike, I'm not sure if that's legal, and I know there's no rules around Web3 right now, but like that could be considered gambling technically. So, but yeah, I get your point. Like you
get something, no purchase necessary. If I find the shoes on the side of the road, I could still scan it and get it.
But if I said that there's one in every 400 shoe pair is going to win $1 million.
I wasn't saying that as the messaging. I'm saying that, like, you know, you ever get something and it comes with a scratch ticket? I mean, all of them are winners. I mean, some of them win different things, but they all win something. I mean, again, it's a giveaway. It's a gift with purchase. Basically, that's all it is. It's a digital gift with purchase. And if he wants to add utility to that afterwards, then that's on him.
Great point. Right. You can get discount to a concert. You can get early release. You can get a lot of stuff because you have this thing already.
Or you can get nothing.
What about
capitalize on this?
What about early access to tickets?
Yeah.
I mean, when this thing first broke with the music industry, you know, guys were dropping, you know, special tracks to people who held NFTs. I forget what band it was, but one of the first real practical applications from the music industry was, you know, anybody who held the band's NFT automatically got backstage passes to all their shows.
It's great.
You know, I mean, look, this is thinking the marketing side of things, right? And like understanding that this is just another billboard that you can throw in front of people.
It's not just marketing and billboards, Mike. It's community building. Because when I go backstage and get to meet the band, I'm a fan for life.
But you're also meeting the other people who have that too. Right. I mean, I think that's another key important. You're 100% right. It is community building and it's community engaging. And again, the beauty part is that you're not locked into one message of what you're providing as part of owning that. You can change that as the times change.
Right.
And then as a user, if I find my wife, my girlfriend, and she doesn't like that music and I can't go to those concerts anymore, guess what? I can sell it.
Yep.
And I can monetize it, right, as an owner of that asset. And that's really where this whole technology comes around full circle.
We've already seen this with the concert tickets, right? If you have the ticket stub to when you saw Pearl Jam at the club before they were famous, like this is that.
Yep.
All right. The last story I want to touch on is actually probably my favorite. Hollywood's angry creators show why Web3 is needed. This is a CoinDesk article about how the Web2 economics aren't working for artists and writers. Specifically, there's a strike going on in Hollywood where they make movies in America here. The writers are upset that ChatGPT is going to put them out of business. Right. That's fair enough, but that's technology. It's the way it goes. However, the film actors have joined this strike because they don't like having their images captured that are then being used, at least allowed to be legally, by the studios for future AI production. So if you're Robert Downey Jr., for example, and you do an Iron Man movie, they can now make the next one without you. And so this begs the question around IP again. This is all about who owns the data in the end of the day. And this data happens to be identity at this point. Thoughts? We'll start with you, Michelle.
I would expect that going forward, actors would be wanting to have stuff in their contracts, wouldn't they, about reproductions of their images using AI or, whatever the next thing that comes out is in terms of being able, whether it be on Midjourney or, like all the particular websites and software that's out there now and what might be developed in the future, because effectively, you have to save your own image, your own reputation, because one of the biggest things for me would be if they put you in movies that you would not want your name associated with, for example, and that would be a really good way to want to be having my identity or my likeness or my copyright on a Web3 on the blockchain, so that people will know that it's not me, that it has actually been created by something else. And I mean, we've talked about that, haven't we, Mike, on other episodes about how we can use that to confirm our identity and, you know, particular things on the blockchain that are immutable. And as we know, when that word means it can't be changed, that particular part of the blockchain couldn't be changed once, you know, we put it there. So, you know, on a moral, ethical level, I just think it's disgusting. But yeah, so
we've seen a lot of this, Mike. I want you to get your comments, but in the specifically Disney Star Wars world, right? Bringing up old Luke Skywalker, and there were actors who had passed already that appeared in the newer Star Wars movies. So these conversations have already started. I want to say Bruce Lee. Didn't we talk about this recently? That his daughter was in conversation about his using his image in new footage. So anyway, Mike,
but I think that's different though than what, you know, then they're saying in this is that the studios would be able to use them for whatever or whenever that they like. And
Yeah.
that's not, you know, I mean, I think in the Bruce Lee case, they're negotiating with the trust and the family about that. And obviously they're going to be paid for that. In this case, I think the biggest beef is the fact that they will pay them once for one movie and then, or whatever, and then not pay them again, but use their images continually afterwards.
Yeah, this is a negotiable shit. Mike, what do you think about this whole situation?
I have absolutely no sympathy for them whatsoever, and I'll tell you why. Because
the studios or the actors?
The actors. Mostly because I don't have respect for the studios either, but the
is there anybody you respect in this business, Mike?
I got a lot of people I respect. You're one of them.
Hey,
you too. He asked the question. As far as the actors go, like, again, this is newsworthy now. Why? We've talked about several different examples of how this technology is endangering people's livelihoods and their reputations and their intellectual property. I mean, way back when, with respecting, you know, artists and Midjourney and seeing how you can create art in somebody else's style and then claim it as your own. Like, nobody gave a shit then. So now, because Superman decides that he doesn't want his likeness to be copyrighted and not get paid for, now we're supposed to care. Like, yeah. I'm sorry, it's the same story. It's just, you know, they weren't vocal about it when it came to other people, and now that they have these platforms and it's affecting them at home, now they're vocal about it. That being said, I don't disagree with them. I think that they, you know, they are artists in their own right, and they have a certain persona that they could bring. And if a studio wants to create an AI generated system, they should have the ability to utilize the likeness, as long as they can say it is AI generated, right? Mm-hmm. Somebody playing Iron Man is playing a character that actor does not own, right? He's basically utilizing a specific set of talents in order to try to portray that particular actor.
Yes and no.
Look, how many different Spider-Mans have we seen?
Yeah, but would Jack Sparrow be Jack Sparrow without Johnny Depp?
We don't know that. It's very difficult to say that, because in our mind, Jack Sparrow is that actor, right? But if there's something that came out tomorrow that tells a much better story and does not include Johnny Depp, I guarantee you there's going to be 100% like push towards that. This is okay, and this is the new Jack Sparrow. We see actors change all the time, right? Whether it's TV shows or whether
Mike, if we know a movie studio, I'm just arguing devil's advocate here. If a movie studio knows that the chemistry works, so Harrison Ford, young Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones, or even Han Solo, is perfect. I now have an 80-year-old Harrison Ford on my hands at Lucasfilm. I'm struggling as a box office franchise. I can make new movies with 30-year-old Harrison Ford again.
That part I understand. But again, like, if you want to create an AI generated movie, then it needs to be an AI generated movie. It cannot be starring Harrison Ford, right? So I
feel like that's going to happen. Whether it'll be the fans that'll do it too, by the way.
100%. Right? It's already happening now. We have all these tools at our disposal to create a video, a likeness, a voiceover of any of these famous people. Why? Because there's content that's out there and it's recorded. Mm-hmm. It's documented somewhere. So these AI tools extract that documented data, scotch tape it together into whatever you want it to explain.
Right. Interesting. Yeah, I feel like this is going to go ahead, Michelle. I want to hear it.
I think that the big movie actors won't be affected by it at all, because no one's going to want to piss off Tom Cruise or,
I have no
Helen
problem pissing off
Mirren
Tom
or all of
Cruise.
this.
He has
No,
no
I'm
impact
saying
on my life at all.
the studios won't want to do that though. So basically, this is going to be, the extras, the people that are standing in the crowd, the people that are waving the flags, the people that are, whatever. So, I mean,
I completely disagree. If you can get a Tom Cruise movie without the Tom Cruise cost, you're telling me a studio wouldn't jump on that?
No,
Who gives
I'm
a
not
shit what he
saying
thinks?
that. Well, I think that Tom Cruise has deep enough pockets to mount a case to try and not let that happen.
He's going to go up
I
against
think.
Paramount or some of these monster
But
multi-trillion
it won't just be
studios?
him. It'll be a class action with him and George Clooney and, Harrison Ford and all of his buddies. They'll all do it. Matt Damon,
That same
Denzel
studio
Washington.
will take their efforts and go to China or go to another country that they don't have those type of same regulations and laws on the copywriting of that content.
That's where we know it's going to get interesting, because there's going to be lawsuits. I think you're both right. I think that there's money at stake enough that they're going to take a shot at it. Like they call it a business decision, at least going back in the finance world. We know that if we do this piece of business, we're going to lose $50 million in the lawsuit, but we can make $100 million. Yeah, we'll just pretend we didn't know.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I'm not advocating for the studios. Don't misconstrue my argument here, because I think they're both at guilt here. And frankly, look, if this is a way to hit reset so they can actually make something that's worthy to watch, then I'll take that too. But look, the world does not stop spinning because Tom Cruise isn't in a movie.
Biggest movie of all of his Mission Impossible was this new one, right? It's the biggest one of them all.
94 in at this point. Like, how many did he make?
He's catching up to Fast and Furious 98. Anyway, this is all conversational, meant as just a discussion. This is a business discussion and is not in any way, shape, or form intended as investment advice. So please be aware you do your own research. This show comes to you guys every week. We are not selling anything. This is just an educational approach of how to use this business tool in your business. Web3 provides new ways to monetize, new ways to build community, and new ways to create an avenue into your products and services if you've done the right way. Done the wrong way, everyone hates you. So we're here to discuss some ways that are being used novel and new, and some ways that are just interesting that we're trying to keep an eye on for you. I guess that's going to be it for this week. It's a brief one. I wanted to say thank you to my co-host, as always, Michelle. Appreciate your joining and sharing.
Thanks, guys. Always a pleasure.
Mike, thanks for joining us.
Always.
Last comments from either of you two on any of these stories. I'll tell you my quick overview. The theme that I pulled, as you both know, we're seeing infrastructure movement more than we are. In the beginning, it was dabbling of how do we use this thing. Then we saw some big companies do some things like Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts and Budweiser. And now we're getting into like the nitty gritty, boring stuff of, okay, how do we interconnect better? How do we identify people better? I really feel like this is the flattening of the curve, and then eventually you get the step up again once it returns. Thoughts? Final thoughts?
It's times like this when people who are building are going to ride that next tsunami wave. So,
yeah, I agree with that. I think that, those that were in it for the quick buck and trying to get out, wring as much as they could out of the water well. And those that are left are those people that are actually interested in the technology, that they know that this is where we need to go and where we're headed, and that by building during this time and sticking it out and improving the technology, improving onboarding will be, where we see the good uptake for next time.
Great. Thank you, as always, both of you. I will be here next time with the two of you at 4:00 Eastern Time, LinkedIn. For those who are listening, we thank you for taking the time. Give us a like and a follow.
Bye.
We are at Web3x3 on LinkedIn, Web3x3. And we will see you guys next week.
bye.
Bye.
Peace.